Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd on the Street, and today we are installing FreeNAS. Alright everyone, so last week a user on the Nerd on the Street forums named Pollier asked a question about what he called block storage solutions. He was asking about two in particular, FreeNAS and Ceph. Ceph is a Linux-based one. FreeNAS, of course, is the massively popular FreeBSD-based NAS distribution. And what he meant by block storage, I think, is basically volume storage. It's a technology that lets you combine several hard drives together to make a logical storage device that can have things like redundancy, improved performance over regular old hard drives. Now, personally, I've never had a network-attached storage server myself. Of course, I've had like Nextcloud and OwnCloud servers and my FileRun server, but I've never had a local network-attached storage server with RAID and everything like that. However, Pollier is a Nerd Club member, and I wanted to provide him some value for that. So he asked a question about FreeNAS. Well, really, he asked a general question about what solutions people have used for network-attached storage. I can't speak to any of my personal experiences with that because I don't have any right now, but I am going to install FreeNAS just to show you guys what the process for doing that is, and I'm going to show you a little bit of simple usage. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below or on the forums, and if you have more experience than me, feel free to go and respond to Pollier at the Nerd on the Street forums. For now, though, we'll go ahead and cut to the desktop and get into the video. Alright, so here we are on our desktop. I'm going to go ahead and open up VirtualBox here, and we are going to make a new virtual machine. So I don't have a machine with 4 or 5 different hard drives already in it laying around, so I'm going to do this virtually. We'll make the virtual machine name FreeNAS Video. Type is going to be BSD, 64-bit FreeBSD. That's what FreeNAS is based off of. The recommended minimum amount of RAM for a FreeNAS installation is 8 gigabytes, so we will type in 8192, that's 8 gigs. Alright, and next we will need to make some hard drives. So the first hard drive we're going to make, we are going to leave the default size, and this is going to be our boot drive. So we'll go ahead and create that. Alright, now we're going to go into our virtual machine settings and set a few more things. First of all, I'm just going to do my normal virtual machine things. FreeNAS does recommend a multi-core processor, so we'll bump that core count up to 2 at least. I always just give my virtual machines more VRAM, and we're going to come down here. Now, as you can see, VirtualBox actually put our boot drive under IDE, which isn't actually a problem, but the rest of our drives are going to be under SATA. First, though, we're going to attach our ISO here. All right, so there's our FreeNAS ISO in our machine. We're going to add a SATA controller, and I'm going to add 4 20 gigabyte hard drives. Now that is going to be quite a bit of space, so I am going to leave it on the dynamically located setting, which means that our performance might not be as great as you would get with a physical machine, obviously. FreeNAS Video Disk 1. Add hard drive. 20 gigs, FreeNAS Video Disk 2. Add hard drive. 20 gigs, FreeNAS Video Disk 3. And finally, FreeNAS Video Disk 4, 20 gigabytes. Alright, and that should just about do it. We are going to set our networking to bridged, and I actually have to go over here to my computer's network settings and enable. Alright. Alright, so we're going to set our networking to bridged. We are going to bridge it to this Ethernet port, which is plugged into my router. This way we'll be able to access the web UI that is going to be hosted on a web server in this virtual machine from our host computer. We'll be able to open up our actual Firefox on my laptop here and access the VirtualBox machine as if it was actually just another machine on our network. Alright, so we will select that. Everything should be good, so we'll go ahead and start the machine, and I'll bring it over to the correct screen. Alright, and we've got Grub asking us what we want to boot. We will just do the default FreeNAS installer. Okay, and we will choose the install option. It's going to ask you which drives you want to install to. This is your installation drive. So we're not going to select the things that we're actually going to want to partition later. We're just selecting what we're booting off of. That's going to be our 16 gigabyte drive. So you can navigate this screen with the up and down arrows to move between drives, spacebar to check a box, and then hit enter once you've got the correct selections. We'll go ahead and proceed, and if you want to set a root password, which I don't see why not, then we'll go ahead and set that root password. Alright, we are going to boot via BIOS, which is the default. And at this point, we are going to install FreeNAS. Now, FreeNAS is actually a little bit heavier than I would have assumed, because it's based off of BSD maybe, or just because of all the different services that are prepackaged with it. It does take a little bit to install, and it actually takes longer than I would expect to boot. Longer than I would expect a regular old Linux distribution to boot. But you have to remember, it's not just a desktop BSD distribution. It's got lots of processes running for the servers and things, and it is going to use ZFS to set up our boot drive, which is probably going to be a little bit slower in operation than just setting up an ext drive, because ZFS has a lot more advanced features in it. So it makes sense that it's a little bit slower, but just be aware of that. You don't want to skimp out on your FreeNAS server if you're building a FreeNAS server. You do want it to be at least decently powered. Like I said, 8 gigs of RAM minimum is the recommendation. Dual core at least processor. They recommend Intel processors specifically, although I'm sure it would work fine if you got AMD. Those tend to have more cores for the price anyway. But right now we are installing. You can see the progress bar going across the screen. All right. And it's creating lots of files that it needs, and the installation has succeeded. So it says please reboot and remove the installation media. So we will click OK. We will reboot our system. I am going to come down here and remove disk from our drive. All right, well, we'll wait for it to actually reboot before we do that. All right, so now we will remove that CD, and now we've got our grub just giving us the one option to boot into our boot drive. We're going to do normal boot, and here's where you see it will take just a minute to boot. Actually, you might not see because I'm going to cut it shorter in the video. I'm sure that for a physical machine it would go a little bit faster than it does with a virtual machine as well. And it's quite an interesting setup once it gets done here. It's actually not going to open up a GUI on the machine itself. It's just going to give us an IP address that we can connect to from a web browser on the network. So you can see it's setting up networking right now. It found my router downstairs, adding default gateway, and it's generating some cryptographic things there, it looks like. Okay, and it is done. So it tells us the web interface is available at 192.168.0.105. So on my laptop here, we'll open up Firefox and go to 192.168.0.105, and here we get the FreeNAS login window. So we can enter our username, enter our password. Not using HTTPS by default, that would be tricky to set up because it's on your local network anyway, so it should be fine. There is an option to use the beta UI, and that actually looks a lot nicer. So we're going to try doing that. Alright, so we will sign in with our root password, and the beta UI actually gives us a little welcome tour here. So sidebar controls are over here. Got it. Available themes, wow, that's flashy. And then choose your language, uses in groups, okay. All right, interesting. I have seen the regular UI before, I have never seen this beta UI before. But you know, it looks like it's working so far. Let's go ahead and get some basic things configured. We'll set our time zone here. And America/Chicago, all right. Looking good, and we'll go ahead and set up our storage. So if we go to volumes here, this is where you manage your storage volumes that you're creating. So up here at the menu, we can open up the volume manager to add a new volume, and it's going to let us name our new storage pool. We're going to name it My NAS. All right, so here's all the physical disks that we have the ability to use. You can see the 4 20 gigabyte hard drives that I added in VirtualBox earlier. So we'll go ahead and select all 4 of those for our pool. Now we are going to go over to the disk groups area and actually click add disks. That's going to bring those disks over from the available devices over here to our disk groups. So at this point we can select what type of disk group, what type of volume we're wanting to make. As you can see, we can do striping, which is RAID 0, and that's going to just combine all of these into one big storage pool with increased performance. We can do mirroring, which is going to have basically one drive copied to every single drive. So we'll have one 18 gigabyte volume that's going to be duplicated exactly. In this case, we would have 4 copies of it. That's a little excessive. RAID Z is FreeNAS's or ZFS's version of RAID 5. So this uses striping with parity to give you more free space than you would get with just mirroring, but it gives you some data redundancy. I believe RAID Z lets you have one failed drive and your volume will not lose any data. It will still work correctly if you lose one drive. RAID Z2, you can lose 2 drives and your volume will still work correctly. You will lose no data. Of course, if you select RAID Z, you've got 54 gigs of free space. If you want that extra bit of safety to where you can have 2 of your drives fail instead of 1, now you're only getting 36 gigs of free space. So you can really pick whatever you want here. If you're just worried about, I want a ton of copies of the same data, if you're paranoid about losing things, you'll want mirroring. If you don't care about losing things, but you just want the best performance and the most space, striping is what you'll want. And then RAID Z and RAID Z2 give you a little bit more fine-tuned control over exactly how safe you're being with your data. I've actually never used RAID Z before. So we're going to select the regular old RAID Z. So it's going to take 4 20 gigabyte hard drives, that's 80 gigabytes total, and it's going to use parity to give us a 54 gigabyte volume that will survive one drive crashing. We'll click create, and it says, warning, the existing contents of all the disks you have added will be erased, of course, and it's going to create the volume. I've got to say, I really like this new UI. I had limited experience with the old UI, but this new one is much nicer looking. Alright, and it looks like our volume's done being created. Alright, so MyNAS, available 50.32 gigabytes, used 1.53 megabytes. Alright, interesting. And I'm wondering what this is. But right now I just want to try accessing MyNAS from my local computer here. So to do that, we're going to go over to sharing, and let's try sharing through NFS. So here we've got AFP, that's Apple's file sharing solution, which works great with Macs, but not sure how that's going to work with Linux. Samba is the Windows version, although I know that that's pretty solid in Linux. NFS is the standard Unix sharing protocol though. So we are going to try creating an NFS share. And we'll go ahead, we're going to add a new NFS share. The path we're going to want to select our volume. So we can do that by browsing here. All right, so it's just MyNAS. That's going to be the root of our volume that we've added. If you want it to be read-only, you can select that right here, but we want to be able to write to this. So we'll just click save at that point. All right. Now that we've created that NFS share, we do need to turn NFS on. It's actually not on by default. So we'll come down to the services area, and where is our NFS? Right here. We will just switch that right on. We'll even turn it on so it auto starts when we turn on our file server, our NAS box. And you can see the progress bar at the top as it's turning on that service. All right, so now that share that we made way back here, now that should actually be on. All right, so at this point we are going to open up a terminal on my laptop, and we're going to mount the NFS share. This is just the easiest way I know of to do this. Dolphin on KDE does not mount NFS shares for you automatically. So let's see what we've got in /mount right now. All right, we have nothing in /mount. So we're going to make a directory to mount this to. So sudo make directory /mount /mynas, and then we will mount our NFS share, which is going to be at 192.168.0.105, and the path is /mount /mynas, which you can see on the screen right here, and that is going to be mounted to /mount /mynas, and it completes. And now, if I open up a file browser on my laptop, Under devices here, you can see I've got my laptop's SSD, my laptop's hard drive, I've got a portable hard drive, I've got a flash drive, and I've got my mount that I just made. And as you can see, I've got about 50 gigabytes free, 50.3 gigs free, which is, if we go back here, just about what this reports. Yep, 50.3 gigs. So that's cool. So this is a working share. Now, as you can see, I don't have any permissions here. So we are going to go ahead and unmount this share, which I need to do as root. Sudo unmount mount FreeNAS. All right. So we actually do need to come back over to our web interface. And what I want to do right now is I want to make it so that anyone on my network can connect to this share and can add files and remove files, which the quote-unquote share we're in, we're not actually in anything because this folder no longer, well, the folder exists, but we're not connected to the share right now. But I want anyone to be able to connect to it. I'm not worried about permissions for the sake of this tutorial. I just want to be able to connect to this share and add files and delete files, and other people on my network can also connect to it if they want to. So we are going to go back to our sharing options here, and we are going to edit this share, and we are going to go to advanced mode, and we are going to use an option called map all. And what this map all user option is going to do is every user that connects to this box is going to be able to use this user's permissions within this folder. And we are going to use the root user. So you might not want to do this if you're in a very large network with lots of people and you're worried about them connecting to your server. You're going to want to go through a little more work to set up more advanced permissions. But like I said, for a home system, I've got a password to join my Wi-Fi network. I know all of the people who are plugged into my router. So we're just going to set our map all user to root, and that should give everyone who connects to this share, including me, full permissions to read and write files. Group permissions, going to be wheel, which is the super user group. We're going to save that. All right, and we are going to come over here, and we're going to connect one more time to our NFS share. So we will run that command again. And it worked after a second there. We are going to bring our file browser back onto the screen. We will try connecting here again, and now you can see that we have permissions to do things. So I'm actually going to open up another file browser here, and let's get some video files up out here. Let's go to Extra Life 2017. I know I've got a nice big, here's a 20 gigabyte video file. It's a 27-hour video. If we open it up here, there you can see 26-hour video. Don't want to get ahead of myself. So that's a very large video file. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste it right here on our NAS. And you can't actually see on the screen right now, but over on my other monitor, KDE does have a progress indicator for the copy. Here, I'll go ahead and screenshot that so you can see what it looks like. And I'll go ahead and put that screenshot in the video. And this is taking a minute once again because I am going through a power line over Ethernet adapter down to my router, back up over Wi-Fi to my laptop again, and into a virtual machine using dynamically allocated storage in a software RAID configuration. So you should probably expect to see better throughput than this. Right now I'm getting about 25, 30 megabits per second on this copy. You should probably expect to see better throughput than this if you're on an actual properly designed network and if you're using a properly designed NAS server. But even this, 31 megs per second, that's still a lot faster than my upload speed to the internet. So this does have advantages over just using cloud storage. It has just occurred to me as well that this might be taking longer than it normally would because I am copying from a hard drive to the same hard drive as well. Remember, normally this would be a separate machine, but this is just a virtual machine on my machine. So do not take this as an indicator of performance, but we can go to the dashboard and see what's going on with our resources. You can see that we have pretty much gotten pretty close to running out of RAM in our virtual machine. Probably maybe should have given it more than 8 gigabytes, but you can see the amount used going up. Right now it says 69.99 gigabytes available. If we refresh, it's going to go down to 69.25, so it is working its way through just very slowly. All right, and that took a little bit, but it is done. As you can see, we have in our share a 20.4 gigabyte video file, and if we go to our storage volumes here, you can see available is now 30.03 gigs. We have 20.3 gigs used. Interestingly enough, if you go to the dashboard on your FreeNAS server, the usage here actually seems to reflect your total drives. You can see it says, the numbers are actually a little cut off there, but it says like 27.94 gigabytes used and 43 gigabytes free. So that would be the actual amount of gigabytes in the hard drives physically, but then your logical volume, oh yeah, you can see right here. So this is your physical drives, how much is used and free. This is your logical volume when you're accounting for the striping and the parity and everything. And it's a little neat, since I am on a virtual machine, I can actually go into my virtual machine files here, and you can see that it has equally, these are my 4 virtual hard drives. Each one of them, as you can see down at the bottom of the screen here, are 10.4 gigabytes. So it is equally distributing the storage between the 4 different drives. So I can come over here. Now that took a really long time to copy for various reasons, mostly because of my video setup here and the virtual machine setup. It's not FreeNAS's fault, but I'm going to attempt to play this over the network, and we'll see how that goes. And okay, and it is actually playing. All right, and this is an MP4, by the way. This is not an MKV file. This is an MP4. So if this was not copied correctly, especially if the ending was cut off, that means the MP4 file would break. But this is playing correctly there, which is very impressive. Now, the last thing I'm going to do in this video, this is pretty much everything I wanted to show you in terms of FreeNAS and how to use it, just how to get a basic setup going for some storage, but I am slightly curious. I'm just going to do something here. I am going to, this is probably a bad idea, but I'm going to simulate a failed hard drive, all right? I'm going to simulate a failed hard drive, and I'm wondering, can I do that while this machine is powered on? I don't think I actually can. If I go to storage, oh yes, maybe I can. No, I can't. All right. Well, here's what we'll do then. I'm going to shut the FreeNAS server down, which all we have to do is go into our terminal here, type in 12, confirm shutdown, yes. We're going to shut this thing off, and we're going to remove one of our drives, which is the same thing as having a drive fail. And then we're going to see what the process is like for restoring our data. I am going to go ahead and unmount our share here. Well, I need to do that as sudo. As you can see, though, Firefox is probably about to tell us that it can't reach. If we try and refresh this, it's not going to be able to connect anymore. Yeah, the refresh is not working there. If we try and play this now, it's going to freeze our computer. Yep, unable to connect. And we're just going to sudo unmount/mount/minus, which we should have done probably before we took the server offline. I was trying to imitate an actual hardware failure, which could easily occur while the machine is on. All right, well, we'll worry about the unmounting in a little bit. That'll keep processing probably. We'll exit out of Firefox for now. Now we're going to go into VirtualBox, and like I said, we were using RAID Z1, which is the equivalent of RAID 5, where it's striping with parity and you can lose one drive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which one of these drives do we want to lose? Let's open up random.org, one of my favorite websites. All right, so minimum 1, maximum 4. Which drive is going to fail? Drive 2 just failed. So we are going to remove drive 2 from the machine. Of course, once you realize that a drive has failed, you are going to want to add a new drive. So we are going to add hard disk, create new, and that is also going to be a 20 gigabyte hard drive, and we're going to call it FreeNAS Video Disk 5. All right, create. And now we're going to boot this thing up. Let's see what FreeNAS does. The rest of this video, I actually was pretty confident about what I was doing. Not entirely sure what FreeNAS is going to do when it realizes that it's missing one of its drives. During the ZFS initialization process, I'm assuming that's when it's going to realize something's up. So we'll just wait for that to finish booting. All right, so beginning ZFS volume imports. Volume imports complete. Looks like it's just continuing with the boot. So it's just giving us the IP address to log in with. So once again, we'll go to Firefox and 192.168.0.105. And we are going to go to the beta UI again because I liked that UI. All right. So here we are. We got a notification up at the top right. The volume MyNAS state is degraded. One or more devices cannot be opened. Sufficient replicas exist for the pool to continue functioning in a degraded state. Interesting. Interesting. So it's telling me right now that I could access that file even without rebuilding that last drive. All right, so I succeeded with my unmount. We are going to mount again now. All right, so let's mount that. And go here. Okay, I mean, it mounted successfully. If we open this up, it's apparently going to have, yeah, degraded performance, but video's playing. I'm a little curious. Wow, I can even skip around in the video. That works really, really well. Okay, cool. So we just lost a hard drive. You saw me disconnect the hard drive. FreeNAS knows we disconnected the hard drive, but I am playing the video and skipping around in it, and it is working. This 20 gigabyte MP4 file encoded with H.265, it still functions perfectly. That is amazing. That's actually really cool. So you don't even, I thought I would have to rebuild that last drive first, but apparently we don't. So if we click this, it doesn't do anything. We'll just clear notifications. Now, if we go to storage volumes, all right, so we're actually going to go to the regular UI for this section because the documentation is still written for the regular UI. So we're just going to log in here, and this is what the older UI looked like once it gets done loading here, and it's trying to run us through a wizard. You can see, like I was saying, the new UI looks a lot better than the old UI. However, if we go to storage, volumes, view volumes. All right, so in the new UI, the only options for the physical representation of our volume here is delete. In the old UI, there's this button here. There's detach, scrub, and then there's volume status. So we'll click volume status. And as you can see, what was disk 2 in our array is now unavailable because it's gone. So we're going to click the replace button. And it's only giving us the one option of the new disk 88.2, which, you know, I removed disk 2. It's the only option it's giving us to replace it with. So we'll click replace. Please wait, and I'm getting solid hard drive activity, so at this point it must be using the parity to rebuild the data. Okay, disk replacement has been initialized. So it doesn't say it's complete, but it says initialized, and my hard drive light is still on pretty much solid. Oh, re-silver it says. Progress 2%. Very interesting. So that option, it was very easy to find and select that option in the old UI. Of course, the old UI in general is harder to navigate because it's a lot more cluttered. I'm assuming eventually they will add that option into the new UI as well. They just haven't gotten around to doing that in the new UI yet, just adding that button to run whatever code needs to be run on the machine. If we go to our dashboard in the new UI, we should be able to see, yeah, see the RAM usage is pretty high. It is working right now. CPU usage is fairly high as well. And progress, if we refresh here, oh, view volumes. So the old UI, the old UI doesn't use different directories for the different pages. That's interesting. But if we go back to status here, progress is 16%. So that's actually progressing fairly quickly. Oh, this says critical up here at the top right. Okay, so it's letting us know the volume MyNAS state is online, and it's letting us know that one or more drives are currently being resilvered. The pool will continue to function absolutely in a degraded state because, like I said, the hard drive light is solid. It's accessing it a whole bunch right now, but if we refresh again to check on that status, now we're up to, all right, still 23.5%. All right, we're up to about halfway now. It's been a few minutes. All right, and the hard drive light just turned off. So now if we go to view volumes, status completed, 0 errors, and it's got a timestamp. All right, and all of our disks show is online. So if we go back to the beta UI now, if we go back to storage and volumes, We're back to having the same amount of space total and everything. Okay, cool. And then if we go and just refresh this directory, open the video up again, still works perfectly. We can still go through it all. Little hiccup there as it was going.
No, it's okay, there's another one.
You can see our pro. I like that 4 out of 5 of the places I just picked in the Extra Life stream, the camera in the bottom right was pointed at nothing. that had to be a fluke. All the places I was just clicking, but yeah, that is awesome. That is actually really impressive. That I didn't even have to rebuild that failed drive, and it still worked just fine with RAID Z. Man, I kind of get what all the hype is about with ZFS now. I kind of get what all the hype is about. And of course, FreeNAS makes it easy to use. You know, you could do all that with ZFS on BSD manually, or you can use this great web interface. Yeah, I can't wait until they put the options to rebuild the drive in the new beta UI. Maybe they're somewhere in here, but maybe they've just moved them. But yeah, beta UI is definitely the way to go for setting things up. And then for right now, you can just hop over to the old UI if you ever need to rebuild anything, which hopefully you won't have to anyway. But if you do, you can just hop over to the old UI. Still much easier than doing it on the command line or anything. So that is FreeNAS. That is how to set up FreeNAS. That's how to use FreeNAS. If you've got any questions about this, like I said, feel free to go and discuss it in that forum topic. I'll link the forum topic down below in the description of this video, so you can go and talk to Polier on the Nerd on the Street website. And if you've ever used FreeNAS, if you know any tips or tricks that I don't know, feel free to chime in that forum thread, or of course in the comments section down below as well. You can get FreeNAS for yourself at freenas.org, but for now that's everything I had to show you all today. So I'm Jacob Kaufman with Nerd on the Street. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.